You say bye, fight fans, too?
Yeah, I said, hey, fight fans.
And then...
Bye, fight fans.
Radio Rahim here. Bleaching my veins, getting rid of this Rona. If Floyd Mayweather were to come out of retirement and face Lomachenko at 140 pounds, that would be the fight I would most want to see.
Were you not entertained? Were you more entertained by KSI and Logan Paul or Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor?
I was Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, hands down.
What?
Radio Rahim stuck with you, Michelle Joy Phelps, and the fight fans, of course, as always. You know, that seemed like a cute title when I first started this show. It's getting kind of ominous now. I think we might actually be stuck with each other for quite some time. But of all the people I could be stuck with, boxing fans and Michelle Joy Phelps are absolutely my first choice. You're welcome to greet the folks, Michelle.
Hey, guys. Hey, fight fans. How are you doing, Rahim?
I was having a good week. I thought, like, early on the week, there were, I know you and I differ on how to receive these statistics from the coronavirus and the upticks and spikes and whatnot, but I thought, places are opening up. Maybe I'm going to get a PR email sometime soon, book a ticket somewhere, see a fight somehow. And my week progressively got worse from there. It started with news that 53-year-old Mike Tyson was coming out of retirement, which we talked about last week. And of course, I put the kibosh on that immediately. Like, I don't even think this guy has a temperament to box anymore, much less at 53, the physical acumen, or should be in that kind of harm's way. But then, of course, somebody from the distance shouted, "Let's go, champ!" And, and the internet went crazy. Yeah. And by Fake News Friday, all of a sudden there was like a deal made, $20 million or $100 million or $120 million.
We have to clarify because I even got confused. It was like 1 minute, it seems like there was a fight made, and then the next minute, there's not a fight made. It was a tweet that came from a fake account. Could we clarify that a little bit? Because I'm still a little confused by what happened.
Well, in keeping with Fake News Friday, by Friday came along, and yes, fake news was all the talk of the town. I believe, at least from what I can deduce based on Twitter and subsequent news accounts from different outlets, was that the bare knuckle fighting championship people had made an offer to Mike Tyson to the tune of $20 million. Again, even that's a rumor, not officially confirmed, but that seems to be what everybody believes and not being disputed by the bare knuckle people, that they made $20 million offer to bring Mike Tyson in to fight Shannon Briggs in a bare knuckle contest. I don't know what any other rules beyond that, although having covered bare knuckle boxing, I can tell you it is a brutal 2 minutes. And I covered that fight in Florida, and everybody I talked to, winner or loser, took serious injuries participating in that event. I'm talking about broken bones. Everybody had cuts. I mean, you might find an exception to that rule here or there. Maybe this guy wasn't cut. Maybe this guy's hands weren't busted up. But everybody was battered in that thing. And it's an enjoyable thing to watch if you really like the slapping of knuckle on bone. But the idea that two guys their age.
Does anyone really want to see someone of that age do this? Like, genuinely. No, seriously, like, let's build real talk. Like, I like Mike Tyson. I don't want to see him permanently injured because of something like this.
I don't even want to see him in a boxing ring. When we talked about this last week, it wasn't a conversation about bare knuckle.
I'm thinking like Floyd Mayweather style exhibition fights, not like bare knuckle boxing. That's a very different type of exhibition. Do you get what I mean? Like,
no, I'm going further than you, Michelle. I'm saying I don't want to see him in the squared circle. I don't want to see Mike Tyson in shorts, stepping through the ropes, ready to punch and be punched. He's an icon in our sport. The standing that this guy has and the progress he's made in his mental health and physically, yeah, it's great. He looks fit. I'm happy about that. He's also got a fucking Snow White beard. Like, what are you guys doing? How thirsty and gross are we? There are plenty of capable young fighters that have an opportunity to make their name and be champions, and we can wait on seeing who becomes the next Mike Tyson, if you will, if there ever will be one. But to try to drag the real Mike Tyson out of his house and pull him into a boxing ring, much less a bare-knuckle brawling cage, to fight just for our amusement, I think is sick. Like, we have to, as an audience, be like, yo, you're worth more than that to us now. You did that already. We respect it. Like, the career is wonderful. The end, I mean, you know, I don't even, the thing is, it forces us to talk about the end. Does anybody even remember the name Kevin McBride? Like, no. But that's the guy who beat Mike Tyson, like, on his stool, like, he quit against so if 10 years ago, when Mike was 43, this was a terrible idea.
right.
He's 53 years old. Like,
I completely agree with you. Like, could not agree more. I think this is a terrible decision. I care more about his health than us getting a few minutes of entertainment on our televisions, quite frankly. So I think that there should be a cap to these men returning at certain ages. I just don't think it's healthy. Like, it's not healthy at what point? Like, if we claim to care about our athletes, right? We claim to care about their health, but whoever sanctions this does not care.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I want to read this, yeah, in case no one's read it. This is from the BKFC president, David Feldman. He said, we made a $20 million offer to Mike Tyson and his team the other day. To be quite frank, they were very concerned about messing up his legacy and stuff like that. So we'll see where it goes the next couple of days. Now, I'm going to read between the lines, and stuff like that probably also means that they're still a bit, they should be concerned about his health. And I know that there's been talk about it possibly being against Shannon Briggs, although that was not confirmed at all. But we know that Shannon Briggs has a deal with BKFC, so that's a bit different, isn't it? So they're assuming that that's a fight they can match up. But the question that I beg, and I know that you want to ask as well, is does the fans actually want to see this? Do they actually want to see Mike Tyson return in a bare knuckle fight? Like, let's really, really think about that, because you're talking about potentially damaging someone's health to the point of no return. Okay? It's like my dad's in his late 50s. Even if he was even if he was a fighter or an athlete in his day, there's no way in hell I'm gonna want to see my father go in a ring and potentially get beat up.
I think quarantine has given everybody cabin fever. Like, these are not the only two fighters talking about making senseless comebacks. I heard Evander Holyfield, who I sat down with in Las Vegas during Wilder Fury Fight Week. An incredible guy, like a wonderful ambassador to the sport, a career to be lauded. And man, who is clearly delusional if he thinks there's a future for him inside the boxing ring. But I'm almost going to give like everybody a pass and hope that once the gates actually open up, that people come back to their senses. Like, we're just sitting here with no boxing, and the old heads are like, well, shit, why not me? You know what I mean? Like, we're all maybe ready to go a little crazy and do things we'd otherwise not do if only we could go outside and do anything. But we as a boxing community have to say no. Michelle, you're not going to let your dad go out of the house and start construction working, let's say. Forget about somebody trying to hit him with a sledgehammer. You don't want your 50-year-old father like busting concrete. Boxing is a brutal sport on your body, just the training aspect of it. Much less some other guy who's been training trying to bust your head open. Our fighters who have made their name, who have given us years and years of their life, have put blood, sweat, tears, put their life on the line many a night in the ring for our amusement and, of course, for their own legacy and wealth, deserve now for us to do them the favor of protecting them from themselves. That's what the referee's job is, right, in the ring? That's what the cornerman's job is in the ring. Well, they're out of the ring now. So it's the fight fan's job to protect the fighter from himself. No, Evander. Yeah. No, Mike. You know what, Shannon? Let's not go, champ. Like, no.
No, I agree. I mean, even George Foreman had a lot to say about Mike Tyson coming back. I mean, he thinks that he's more than capable of doing it. Like I said, it's not something that I support. Is it like at first when I heard all of this, I assumed it was like, we have like the Fantasy Fridays where we like, if so-and-so was to fight so-and-so, like who would win? I didn't really think this was like real.
Like, oh, we can still do that?
Yeah, like, we can still, wait, who, what, why? So, I mean, if it's a money issue, it's still a bad decision. Because let's say, for example, okay, you got paid $20 million. Well, what happens if you come out of the ring and something happens to you, you don't get to enjoy that money? Is it really worth you possibly spending the rest of your life here on Earth capacitated to a point where you may not be able to do anything? I don't think so. But again, I'm curious if the fans actually want to see that. Do they think it's a good idea?
Yeah, and I'm afraid, Michelle, it's probably going to be a mixed bag. Because I've seen a lot of reaction initially when they thought the fight was made, and I don't hear a lot of people talking like us. In fact, I hear very few echoing these sentiments. But maybe that's because it's not real yet. They're excited about an Instagram video, and there's nothing going on, so we'll take anything.
But those will be the same people that when he's, God forbid, something happens to him, they're going to be like, this is disgusting. How did boxing allow this to happen? Like,
no. They'll be like making memes of how Mike Tyson can't form a sentence anymore. They'll be showing Shannon Briggs in a wheelchair or Evander Holyfield having a fucking heart attack. Like, it'll be fodder. And what I'm hoping is that before all of that kind of trolling and really disgusting elements of just the human behavior comes out, that the better of us will stop the community from allowing this to go forward in the first place. Because we can stop it. Like, we can say, no, just as a voice of the consumer, this is not okay. We can't expect a promoter to do that for us because they're going to make too much money off it. And you can't talk a fighter who believes he can still fight out of fighting. You and I both, Michelle, know that tirelessly. So it's up to the community of fans to be like, yo, you are more valuable to us than this now. You've done that already. I'd rather hear what you have to say about the up-and-coming fighters. I'd rather see you training the next generation. I'd rather see you smoking pot on your podcast and making jokes than putting yourself in harm's way. We got guys who can still do that, and boxing ain't going nowhere. You don't have to save it. Like, chill. And hopefully they try to make this fight in the UK or England, because I don't think they would pass the new rules that are established for British boxing.
Please, let's talk about this, because it has me in my feelings.
Yeah, of course. It has you. You know what's going to have you in your feelings and in your house, because it sounds like we may not be welcome at this venue. But initially, let me tell you who's not welcome at the British Boxing Board of Control sanctioned event in the UK. And they put this out as like a real detailed document as to what you can expect as a British boxing fan. It's the first document I've seen of its kind from any commission or any country. So for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to assume that, usually the first people to put like a template forward, like people who have serious power and are in control of this kind of stuff, sets the tone. And then people tend to follow suit. So if America follows suit, if the rest of the world follows suit, that this could be what boxing looks like now.
Yeah, for a while at least.
Right. So
I list.
definitely, I believe is the word they've used. Go ahead.
Can I list off who should not attend before we start?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Yeah, go for it.
It says who should not attend the tournament. People 70 years or older, regardless of medical conditions. People with chronic lung disease.
Sorry. What? There goes Foreman. I'm just saying. What's next?
People with chronic lung disease or moderate to severe asthma. People with serious heart conditions.
There goes Evander Holyfield.
People who are immune compromised. People with chronic neurological conditions. People who are seriously overweight. Did you hear this one? People who are seriously overweight. What's the cap?
So Andy Ruiz can't go either?
It's clearly saying that a lot of people should not attend. People with diabetes, people with chronic kidney disease or undergoing dialysis, people with liver disease, those who are pregnant.
So no new champion's wife.
Basically. Or, God forbid, any female correspondent get pregnant and can't go to work. Those who are currently self-isolating as a result of the household member being COVID, that's pretty standard. Like, any person who has tested positive for COVID within the previous 14 days, standard. Any person returning from abroad within the last 14 days or an overseas boxer, which means that if you and I would have to choose, if we got invited back, we would have to choose between events if they were overseas, because then we would be required to only attend one every 14 days if it was international.
Well, I think, at least my reading of that would be we'd have to go over 14 days early, which is really...
What if they were back-to-back is my point.
But once we're there, we've been there for, right? Like, once you're in the country for the 14 days. But Michelle, think of it this way.
Unless we were in Saudi Arabia, and the following week there was an event in the UK.
Yeah, but then how can Matchroom have a fight in Saudi Arabia and then the UK the next week?
With all due respect, I like the idea that we're moving forward, at least hosting events, okay? But when we continue to read down, a lot of it doesn't make sense. So I'm like, wait a minute. How are we supposed to do that? How are somebody supposed to quarantine 48 hours prior to the event? How does the weigh-in work? Are they going to push the press conference a few days earlier? Sure, I'm sure that's fine. But how would a weigh-in work? The weigh-in has to take place the day before. How does a lot of this work for promoters or management and the fighters if the requirement is that you have to quarantine 48 hours prior to fight night?
Right, and then think of this, because this did happen in the UFC, who has a fight tonight. I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out. They're having a fight in Florida. I'm just curious how the logistics are going to work. But one fighter tested positive at the weigh-in or after the weigh-in. So what do? Trace back everybody he came in contact with at the weigh-in? If one of those people then contracted from him or test positive now, do you one domino, one monkey can stop the show? These are kind of impossible restrictions on the one hand. And yes, I'm happy to see some kind of movement towards getting boxing back, but I want boxing back. I don't want some kind of clinical presentation of something that smacks more of WWE because there's so many regulations and nobody's there to witness the actual event, this seems like it's going to have to be so overproduced and inaccessible that it may just change the nature of the consumption of the sport. The spectator aspect of this sport could be like changed forever. Or, like you said, we'll take what we can get.
Let's read off in case fans are not aware of what this says. It said that COVID-19 testing and pre-tournament quarantine. So it says all in attendance at the tournament will require COVID-19 testing. The boxers, referees, and trainer will be required to undertake their COVID-19 testing 48 hours before the tournament once the test has been undertaken Once the test has been undertaken, all boxers, referees, and trainers will be required to self-isolate in a hotel and await the test result. Now, this is 48 hours prior. I'm so confused how this is going to happen. It said that the BBBFC must be informed of all test results a minimum of 24 hours before the tournament.
Well, how is that now we're down to 72 hours.
That's
and
exactly.
Also,
that makes sense.
Also, does that mean
health provision is the responsibility of the promoter?
Yeah,
so it's supposed to pay for everyone's hotel room. Well, we're really screwed. We're not going to these events.
Right. And
no one pay for us to attend.
Oh, I guarantee you they will put that cost on us. But then the thing is, if they do that and leave it up to us, how can they then be responsible for our behavior unless they're monitoring it? And this is all, what is this all on the honor system? Not like everybody in boxing isn't honorable, but are we saying that the fighter now cannot engage his own trainer for 48 hours before the fight and up into maybe even through the weigh-in? Like, how does that work? If it's a 24-hour notice before the event, well, okay, then that makes room for the weigh-in. But then now we're pushing it back to a Wednesday before the fight, meaning that while the most crucial days on which the fighter is supposed to be getting down to his weight, and we all know how difficult it is for a lot of fighters to make that weight, the 2 days prior, they can't be in contact with their trainer or anyone else. They can't go anywhere. They have to sit around for 48 hours in an isolated space by themselves and then do the weigh-in? What fighter's going to be able to do that?
I don't know. And it even says COVID-19 screening on arrival at venue. So this is fight night. Upon arrival at the venue and prior to entering the arena, all attendees will have their temperature taken and pre-tournament medical questionnaire reviewed. All attendees must bring a copy of their COVID-19 test result to the venue. If any irregularities are identified, the individual will not be permitted to enter the arena.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
From the boxers win-in corners.
Oh, yeah, no spitting. Remember that? Well, we're done. That's it. I don't know a single fighter that's going to be able to manage that.
Okay, look, the longer I go down this, the more questions I have. So clearly, whoever, when they wrote this, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of contradictions, and they're going to have to address them as it happens. Because clearly, how this is written out is impossible.
Yeah.
Like, it is. It just is. Like, when we're looking at how we normally structure a media week, right? So according to the normal structure, it looks impossible. So I'm curious to know how they're going to make everything work. But another question begs, when you look at the people who are allowed to attend, it says, so there'll be no ring girls allowed in the ring.
I'm out.
Does that mean there's no girls? Because there'll just be girls hanging ringside? So what does that mean?
Yeah, no ring girls, no pregnant girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much all there is.
The master ceremony is not permitted in the ring. No camera people in the corners of the ring, and TV interviews are to take place in agreed destination areas or designated areas. It says TV commentary area must have space enough for social distancing. The only persons allowed in the ring prior to and after the contest are the boxers, one trainer, referee, and a medical officer. They have to be sitting 2 meters apart. Officials are 2 meters apart at ringside, and ringside working tables 2 meters apart. Now, according to when we've been reading down this, just to let people know, media is not included in on this list. So here's the thing. I don't do this for a hobby. You don't do this for a hobby. The United States of America currently is only giving very limited resources to help us make ends meet, if any. Okay? I depend on attending events to survive. Like, we cannot be excluded. Like, there has to be an option to continue to have our businesses go. Otherwise, I don't have a contract with somebody who's paying my bills. The longer this goes, who else are we going to see collapse under this? Because we can't continue to survive off of just these videos. It's not possible. It's like there has to be some way of getting people to return to work. This isn't a hobby or I just enjoy being there. Like, this is literally livelihood at risk here. And if it's like, if that means I have to go take tests, do what I got to do, so be it. But to not even see that there's an option for media to attend scared the hell out of me. It made me think, like, do they realize, like, I don't have a job at all if I don't attend these events. You don't have a job. Like, we all don't have jobs. At least a good few of us actually do this for a living. We don't just show up and then do an interview and we have a day job. That's not the way this works. So I'm really personally concerned for like how long this is gonna go on for.
You don't have to think about necessarily the plight of the media individual. As a fan, you have a right to have the fight represented to you through objective eyes. Like, that's the job of the press, right? To ask questions when things are questionable and to deliver a firsthand account of what's taken place. So I don't expect to get a lot of sympathy from the inner workings of boxing politics for the press if they can control it. The issue isn't us. The issue is the fans' access to not having their view of what's taking place controlled and delivered to them as spoon-fed. You have to have an objective observer. That's what the press does. Michelle, the people who watch your content, especially the ones who watch Michelle for Michelle's sake, not just Googling boxing and here comes across Michelle, they want your perspective on what's happened. They trust you as an arbitrator of dispute if something goes awry. They trust your voice standing next to a fighter and getting from him answers on issues and delving into topics that a promoter may not want discussed, challenging fighters on issues that they may not be honest about, observing what happens in the ring for things that may not be in the network or promoter's best interest to broadcast. When there have been dozens, if not over the annals of history, thousands of times when something's happened at a fight that the press had to expose. And also multiple times, thousands of times when moments happen at a fight that the fans would have never been exposed to if the press weren't there with cameras and questions. You can't produce a fight like this or a sport like this, combat sports, mind you, in a vacuum where the network and the promoter have complete control over the message and the optics and the account of what's taken place. Simply put, there's a free and fair press for a reason. It's because things need to be objectively viewed and the fans have a right to know exactly what's going on from multiple perspectives. Not just like, again, a produced television show like WWE or something that you're being spoon-fed and only seeing what those who have conflicting interests want you to see. It's about the fans' freedom, not ours, but our duty is to deliver that freedom, that objective view, that challenging of the company line and the fighters themselves to the audience. And if the press isn't there to do that, I guarantee you it won't be done. No promoter has that in their interest, and no network wants to show you anything but what benefits the network and sells the next fight. So from the fans' perspective, I'm curious if this kind of structure works for you beyond like just simply missing out on what I would consider an essential element of the sport. Can boxing even survive these kind of regulations? And my final question is, if you're going through all this process to make sure everyone is screened and quarantined and clean and checked one more time on the way in, plus you have paperwork, then why the fuck do we all need to be 6 feet apart and only one person being? I thought everybody was good. If everybody's not good, then we might as well just let everybody come. It's like one or the other. Trying to do both is a bit extreme and prohibitive. Why are we doing all this testing and screening and quarantining and isolating and paperwork and testing on the way in if we're going to be treated like everybody's infected once we get in there? Like, come on, guys.
That's why I'm saying there's a lot of contradictions that are going on, but we'll just have to wait and see. And again, I could not stress this enough. Like, to not see that media were included in on this is very worrisome. And to be honest with you, I don't see anybody really caring because, quite frankly, if you're not under someone's banner, you're not really their responsibility. And even though, you know, for example, like myself, I've spent nearly 10 years building my business, and I would really hate to see it crumble under something like this because we were not considered essential to return to work.
Right. So again, like we're very interested in the fans' opinions, and if you have questions, we've got questions, but we might have some answers. We may know a little bit more than you, but to be honest, along these lines, we're just reading you what we've been sent, and we probably know more than you, but believe me, we have our share of questions too. We'd like to hear yours. If things pursue this way, I can't wait to find out how this UFC thing turns out in Florida tonight, but we might end up in just a laundry list of circus type of fights and atmospheres, hybrids. I mean, look, we talked about
even
fighters.
the UFC has press there. So I'm just, like I said, I'm a little confused as to why I'm reading based on what I'm reading. Who knows? It could be revised, totally. But
It has to be revised to make it workable.
Yeah, to what we've been given does not indicate media. So I'm curious, like, if the UFC is capable of doing this right now and still running a show successfully, then why can't boxing follow suit?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, right now, things have gotten so crazy with these fighters coming out of retirement, boxing putting, at least in England, putting this kind of really what I consider a prohibitive standard of protocol in front of us. And the UFC out in Florida so far, almost so good. I'm not glad that anyone has virus, of course. This is not what that's about. But as a test case, since someone unfortunately does have it and did participate in the buildup and the event immediately prior to the actual fight night, and then the system worked and was discovered, I'm curious to see how that then affects the event, what the protocol is going forward. I mean, you have to credit the UFC with getting out front and taking a risk and doing the thing, and now they've got a case that's been exposed and see if they can continue on, if this show actually happens ultimately, and in what way. Because more so than like a document that seems a bit extreme, we should follow a model that works. And the UFC has gone out there and tried to create a model that might work, and I'm interested to see if it does. Whether or not the next fight we see might be Oscar De La Hoya in a cage against Conor McGregor, or if Conor McGregor in a ring against Oscar De La Hoya, are the kind of prospects that we might have to look at if boxing doesn't get its shit together. Right? Can you imagine UFC promoters might end up taking over boxing because they figured it out and we're looking at like a laundry list of prohibitive protocols. If you don't know,
I was having a hard time, with us having this topic mentioned.
who is?
I said I was having a hard time, with knowing that this topic was going to be mentioned because it's sort of like it's not happening. Back to Fantasy Fridays, like, God.
Man, I can't say that anything's not happening at this point. Like,
no, I just think a lot of people are enjoying, like you said, they're enjoying the what ifs and, if this happened, what if that happened? And a lot of people are just bored at home, talking crap to each other. It's an interesting one, but it's not happening. Come on now.
listen,
Come on.
Oscar De La Hoya, as retired as he's been for as long as he has, I haven't seen 15 seconds of him hitting the mitts like Mike Tyson. I still got Oscar in the fight. Like, that's how much UFC and boxing are apples and oranges.
Oh, well.
Conor McGregor can't beat anybody whose name I know in a boxing match.
Oh, look when he fought. Look when he
Boxer
fought
I know.
Floyd Mayweather. He was still
Right.
trying to take him down. He was still doing moves that were illegal. Like, he couldn't actually get through an actual fight without wanting to resort to turning to MMA. Like, it's just very different.
I mean, am I mistaken? Was this not one of the punches? Like, it's over. Like, somebody, like, wait, like, this is what I should have seen immediately thereafter. This guy's not
They
qualified.
just let it go, dude. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, and then he's trying to, like, hug him from behind and stuff. And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
what? And he was never docked a point or, yeah, I
Right.
know.
There never was a point, Michelle. You can't talk a point where there is no point. That's my point. This is my point about UFC boxing, mixing it all. And by the way, cage fans, UFC guys, I also couldn't name a single boxer, not one name that I know, who could win a UFC cage fight, MMA style, against Conor McGregor. That is just, neither one of those things are happening. So let's stop trying it. Let's find out, fight fans, whether or not we can get, first of all, our royalty, their head in order, and make them understand that they are now boxing royalty. Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, these guys are well above the cut of the rest. These guys are legends, and we can't let our legends be destroyed any more than you would allow those structures that are the pillars of your home to be ripped out. Like, that's what boxing is. Being able to grow old, still make money, not be desperate for a paycheck so that you have to put yourself back in harm's way, possibly for permanent damage, much more likely permanent damage. We should be able to support their podcasts, support them as broadcasters, support their brands. If they've given to you a childhood or a young adulthood that was exciting and they've contributed to the sport and now you've got some money to spend, go spend it with our legends. Don't let the paycheck be the reason that these guys get themselves killed in the ring. And don't hype it up on social media like you don't understand how violent and dangerous the sport is. I want Mike Tyson and all his faculties and his ability to enjoy the rest of his life, just like Evander Holyfield, to be for as many long days as possible. I want to enjoy those guys on the planet for as long as possible. And I think and hope that all the fight fans that can hear us and those who are on social media just excited about talking boxing, take a breath and realize what's on the line for real.
Well, is there a way that we can get a few opinions?
Yeah, I mean,
What are the fans saying about either of the topics we've discussed?
yeah. All right, I got Mike. Do you want to see Mike Tyson fight Shannon Briggs? No. All right. All right, we've got my resident boxing fan aficionado. Like, he says the same thing I say. Under no circumstances does he want to see that. That's encouraging. Like, that's a fight fan through and through. but we're going to give people a chance to chime in. Like, this show will be up. You know how we do it. You can reach out to us on social media. You can comment right here on the section underneath the video. But we want to know. And then next week, we will review what you've said. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of new fake news and real news to report. And until then, Michelle, Radio Rahim, all the other names you know that cover boxing are going to continue to tirelessly work to bring you whatever stories are out there, to set up our own equipment and make our own calls, get access to the fighters so we can talk about whatever's on their mind or whatever is possibly happening next, and keep digging and keep getting stories to you. So when boxing returns, don't forget that we're the ones who helped keep it alive while it was like withering on the vine with every other sport. When they go back to making those checks, they go back to putting those fights in front of you on the television in whatever regard that they are able to do. Don't forget, we, as are you, the fan, essential aspects of the sport. And if they cut us one out, they cut us all out. If they don't allow Michelle or myself or the other names that you know and follow to cover the sport, they're not just handicapping our ability to continue in pursuit of our careers, they're handicapping your ability to watch the fights and have an unbiased perspective on what's being put in front of you as honest competition. Who's going to keep them honest if not us? Who's going to be your eyes and ears if not us? Who's going to do the work like we're doing today and that you see all week if not us? So we look after you, look after us, and when the fights do return, let's all keep an eye on them. Stuck with you, Radio Rahim, and
Bye, fight fans.
bye, fight fans.